Hello and welcome back to another GiantSlayerTV video. This is our second video looking at the upcoming changes for the mid-set Neon Knights. We've already covered champions and traits, so today is all about augments with a brief look at item changes. With over 80 augments being introduced, we're focusing on the augments that are likely to make the largest impact in the game. Keep in mind that due to the mid-set still being on PvE, there's a strong likelihood that a lot of these augments will undergo balance changes. Numbers are going to be different, and some may even be moved between tiers. With all that said, let's go ahead and get started. But before we begin, please don't forget to click the links in our description. Give your support to everyone who helped make this video happen. We host many TFT tournaments with plenty of exciting content to come. Be sure to also follow our GiantSlayerTV social media pages. Alright, let's get back to the video. Starting off, let's go over the impactful silver tier augments being added in 6.5. As a lot of these augments are generally split into multiple tiers, we're also going to be talking about how they scaled based on augment tier. First up, we have Treasure Trove. Treasure Trove is nice and simple as it provides loot orbs at varying strength. At level 1, Treasure Trove provides 1 blue and 1 gray loot orb, but at level 3, it goes up to 3 blue loot orbs and 2 gray. So you can see how this augment can definitely scale well with higher augment tiers. At a baseline, it's not bad, especially on 1.4 since it's granting you either more gold or another component. Later on in the game, the silver tier version may not be all that useful and is likely going to be skipped over unless there's no other worthwhile option available. Both gold and prismatic tiers should be viable options all game, though it will depend on your board state and economy. Let's move on to the next augment, Three's Company. This augment provides 3 random 3-cost champions. Excuse me, what? A silver tier augment that provides that much? Yep, it sure does. So expect to be in a really high roll position if you get this on 1.3 because that's a 9 gold value in units to play off of. Definitely one of the stronger silver augments coming in Neon Knights, and we may see changes to it or restrictions on when it can show up. Recombobulator is a fun and unique silver tier augment that can completely change the course of the game. Essentially what it does is every champion on your board gets randomly changed into a different champion just 1 tier higher. Yes folks, that does mean a 4-cost unit can become a 5-cost unit. Early on 1.4, it's not likely to be as impactful, though getting a bunch of 2-cost units is certainly useful, but where it really does well is on 3.3. Imagine having a few 3-cost units, maybe a 4-cost, and suddenly, boom, your board is now multiple 4-costs and a 5-cost. On 3.3! Definitely a unique and potentially powerful augment, especially in the silver tier. That said, it can grief your whole board, so choose wisely when considering this augment. Next, let's talk about Electrocharge. When you have Electrocharge active, anytime your units receive a critical strike, they do magic damage in an AoE around them. This damage scales with each tier, but even as a silver augment, it does decent damage. The reason we're highlighting this augment is how surprisingly effective it can be, especially early game, where small bits of extra AoE actually make a huge difference. We recommend keeping an eye out for this augment when Neon Knights releases. Disintegrator causes your unit's attacks to deal bonus magic damage based on a small percent of the target's max health, with the percent damage scaling per tier. It's simple and may not sound amazing because the numbers are relatively low, with the current being 2% for silver tier, but keep in mind this gives your board a way to deal with beefy targets. It will be lobby dependent, but the times that the Disintegrator will be useful, it should do really well. From the Grave returns Luden's Echo, though not as an item, but instead an augment available at all 3 tiers. Just like the old item did, when one of your units casts an ability that deals ability damage, the first target hit and nearby enemies will take bonus magic damage. The damage scales per tier, but honestly the later the game is, the less useful this augment is likely to be. Instead, think of it as an augment to win streak early in the game, or for a minor power spike in the mid game. More than likely, boards running spammy units will do better with Ludens, but overall the extra damage should stay relevant until the late game. Next up is Second Wind. For any D&D fans, this augment does exactly as it sounds, providing a boost of health just at the right time. And by the right time, we mean currently after 10 seconds of combat. Once that 10 seconds is up, all of your units heal for a percentage of their missing health, with the healing scaling per tier. You probably don't need to go further than that because it should be apparent that a team-wide heal based on missing health is really good. But we're going to gush over it just a bit more because, sheesh, that's a lot of healing. Plus, it should stay relevant all game, though of course anti-healing reduces how effective it is. For sure an augment to keep an eye out for, especially when playing any beefy boy boards. Blue Battery is also available as a silver and prismatic tier augment, but for good reason. Baseline, it restores 10 mana to your units after they cast an ability. And not just once, the whole fight. So anytime a unit is casting, it's regaining mana afterwards. This is bumped up to a whopping 20 in the prismatic tier. Essentially, it's like having a free blue buff for your whole board, so depending on the board, it's really good. The final 3 traits for the silver tier that we're lumping together are Free Healthcare, Study the Blade, and Hextech Armory. These are all basically the same as your units benefit from a specific trait as though it were that unit. 3 traits are, in order of our initial listing, Chemtech, Challengers, and Hextech. These are quite unique because it lets you have those traits on units without needing an emblem, though keep in mind it doesn't increase that specific trait at all, it's just providing the benefits. These augments may not end up being relevant, but they're certainly worth considering in the right situation. Alright, and with that, we can now move into the gold tier augments. First up is Golden Gifts, an augment available as both gold and prismatic. Similar to Treasure Trove, this augment instead provides a gold loot orb with the prismatic tier offering an additional orb. In general, gold orbs are lucrative because they provide useful things like spatulas or tomes, as well as extra gold or units. It's not all that flashy gaining just one, but the prismatic version is definitely worth grabbing. Depending on other options, Golden Gift may be an easy choice a lot of the time. Similar to Three's Company, True Twos gives you 2 random, 2-star, 2-cost champions. Phew, that is a lot of 2s. Having the option of this augment on 1-4 or even 3-3 is ridiculous because you're gaining so much board value with just one augment. Highly recommend you use and abuse this whenever it shows up on 1-4. Another champion-themed augment is 4-score, which provides 3 random 4-cost champions. Again, this is amazing because of how much value you gain, though it's definitely going to be restricted from showing up on 1-4. At 3-3, though, this augment can drastically change your board and give you an immediate direction for your comp. Definitely a strong augment to test out. Need a component? How about 3? Well, Component Grab Bag has you covered since it provides 3 random item components. It's roughly similar in value to the Item Grab Bag augment, more so since you can choose what you want to use those components on. Or Augments is always great, so this augment gets our super solid star of approval. Jeweled Lotus bypasses the need for having a Jeweled Gauntlet as the magic and true damage of your unit's abilities can now do critical strikes. This is great for AP boards and frees up having to commit to a Jeweled Gauntlet, but outside of that, may not be all that useful. Certainly good, but it's an augment we'll have to see used to get a better understanding of how valuable it really is. Even better than a free Jeweled Gauntlet is a free Quicksilver to your whole board with Verdant Veil. Verdant may have been a terrible trait in past sets, but Verdant Veil is likely to be quite strong, especially in lobbies with high amounts of CC. By far the most controversial and unique augment is Future Sight. It has 2 tiers as Gold provides a Zephyr and Prismatic provides a Radiant Zephyr. The baseline effect lets you know who you're fighting next. It's an insane amount of information to be given, especially if you get it early on in the game. This augment brings up a new feature that they plan to add, which is combat tracking. Instead of players having to rely on third-party apps or memorizing names, they will be able to instead see in-game who their possible opponents are. This is a welcome change that should have been introduced ages ago, but the devs are always hesitant about providing that information. A great change for the future of TFT. We've mostly bypassed trait-specific augments, but we can't this time with Thieving Rascals. When playing Yordles, the free Yordles will have a chance to arrive holding an item component. The chance is relatively low, below 50%, but for an already econ-focused synergy, this augment makes Yordles even better. Assuming, of course, you have it early on into the game, as the later you get it, the less value it'll provide. Another trait-specific augment worth noting is Very VIP. Very VIP makes it so that when an ally dies, they grant the Debonair VIP a % of their maximum HP for the rest of combat. It's essentially the Imperial augment all for one, but considering the VIP buff is more valuable than the Tyrant buff, the augment is likely to become a must-have for any Debonair board. With that, we can move in to the Prismatic tier augments. As Prismatic augments are generally powerful, we'll only be focusing on a few of them. Starting off, we have High Five, the Prismatic version of the free Champion augment in the other tiers. Like those, you gain 3 champions, but all of them are 5 costs. Obviously, this won't be available on 1-4, but presumably it's possible to get it on 3-3. If not, it's still plenty powerful on stage 4-6, since 3 5-cost units is a lot of gold value, plus it may give you the perfect unit that you were looking for to complete your comp. Definitely a strong Prismatic option when Neon Knights comes out. Not only will we have the Ornn Armory, we're also gaining the Radiant Armory with Radiant Relics. Players that choose this augment can pick one of 4 random Radiant items, all of which are powerful versions of regular items. Hopefully this augment is high in value and doesn't get dropped down a tier like Portable Forge did. If you're a fan of Draconic, then you'll love this next augment, the Golden Egg. The Golden Egg, when taken, gives the player a massive golden egg on their bench that eventually hatches. The number of turns is likely going to change before the release, but the initial number was 5 turns. Once hatched, the player gains all kinds of goodies like Nico's Help, gold, champions, items, and even more. It's definitely a big old gamble box, and it's definitely risky to take on 4-6. But if you get to take it early on, it has the potential to swing the game just like the mercenary player cashing out. The final augment we want to talk about is Tiny Titans. Tiny Titans grants you extra health and increases your maximum health as well. Think of this like gaining 2 or 3 extra lives in the game. The truly game-breaking question is whether or not it can be paired with Metabolic Accelerator, as that combination of augments would be quite powerful. And that's it for the new augments we're covering today. But before we go, we want to talk about the upcoming item changes. First off, emblems. With Imperial and Academy leaving the set, they've replaced their emblems with Striker and Hextech. Striker requires a sword and a spatula, while Hextech needs a tier and a spatula. Maybe hard to remember at first with all the other changes as well, but try to keep it in mind when wondering what to use your shiny spatula for. The larger and more important change is the removal of Guardian Angel and the introduction of Edge of Night. Edge of Night makes it so that when the item holder first drops below 50% health, they briefly stealth. This makes them untargetable and removes any debuffs. Once out of stealth, they gain additional attack speed. Guardian Angel, while iconic for TFT, has always been problematic. And honestly, it's been through too many balance changes and reworks at this point that it just makes sense to replace it. Edge of Night, at least so far, seems to be a worthy successor without having the same issues that Guardian Angel did. Hats off to the devs for making what appears to be a well-balanced replacement for GA. The only potential concern is that dropping aggro with Edge of Night may make some units a bit too strong, but honestly, it's unlikely to be as hard to balance as Guardian Angel was. And that's all for today, folks. The Augment system has truly been the best thing to come to TFT since the game's release, and they're proving with Neon Knights that there's still plenty of unexplored ideas with the system. Let us know in the comment section below which augments you're the most excited to test out. Thank you for watching, and if you're enjoying our content, be sure to like button and subscribe for future Giant Slayer TFT videos.